Hello and welcome to the video. This is a video about this thing here. This is one of the latest quads from BetaFPV. Now this is something called the Pico20. I looked at the Pico Pico a little while ago, and although I like the idea of the removable frame on top of like that kind of large whoop style layout, it didn't really float my boat. There are a couple of things that I didn't quite like about it. However, it appears they've been listening, because this Pico20 is a much better choice. They've improved an awful lot of stuff here. Sadly, only available as a cage only, and sadly, really designed for the DJI O3 Air unit. I'll come back onto that in a minute. I think DJI are up to something with manufacturers and specifying that they have to provide O3 Air unit only options for this kind of stuff, otherwise they won't love them anymore. So the bullet points on this is that this is really designed to be an indoor or outdoor lightweight 2-inch quad, specifically designed around the DJI O3 setup. Has injection molded brackets and injection molded frame, and the installation for an O3 Air unit is pretty easy and straightforward. However, as you can see, I've put something else in mine. Does have an open-ended battery strap slot underneath that will accommodate up to 2 or 3S batteries, and does mean that you have a wide choice. We'll come on to batteries in a minute, because I would try and keep this as light as possible. And it has a new F4 2 and 3S 20 amp all-in-one flight controller inside that only weighs just under 6 grams, but does have the port for the HD digital FPV stuff on the side. So what have they improved from the original Pico Pico that I looked at a while back? Well, the Pico20 is basically an upgraded version of the Pico, and that's what it looks like to me. It's 9.2 millimeters larger wheelbase, 20 gram heavier, and it has bigger motors and props. So going through the specs on this has a 90 millimeter wheelbase versus 80.8 on the previous one, I think it was. The empty weight without an air unit or battery is around 54.51 grams versus a very lightweight 34.6 grams before. It does support the O3 Air unit, but also supports the Cadix Vista stuff, Runcam Link, DJI O3 Air unit, but actually will work with things like the Walk Snell Avatar HD Pro kit and other stuff too. Battery slot is 20 millimeters wide and unlimited height, and the recommended battery for this is only a 3S, which is 450 to 650 milliamp hours. And the other one was kind of built around a 2S setup, and that 3S setup gives it a little bit more poke. Motor on this is 1103 8500 kV brushless motor versus the Pico, which had 1102 1400 kV brushless motor, and the props are a little bit bigger as well. Flight time, they reckon, is going to be about 5 minutes, and I think that is going to be with some very gentle flying. Flight controller again is an F405 2 to 3S 20 amp LRS version 1 flight controller, so it's a version 1 of the flight controller, but Express LRS in here is the latest versions of 3.x, so you will be able to just connect it. Receiver versions do have the one with the inbuilt Express LRS, also TBS options too. Battery connector is XC30, and it does have the option to put these light strips around the outside, which are controlled via the use of one mode in Betaflight. And if you're trying to keep it really light, I'd probably keep those off. It's only a handful of grams, but for me, I really like the way it looks. In terms of the Betaflight setup, the dump and diff is actually available from BetaFPV website, which is a nice idea. Everything is set up in here to use the onboard Express LRS receiver with CRSF, and the ports are configured that way too. I needed to do a little bit of work on this in order to get it to work with the older Air unit, because what I had to do was turn on UART5 as MSP. That enabled me to then select S-Bus from the Air unit directly, and then I also had to then change a couple of things in the ports just to have MSP selected for the port that the version 1 Air unit was connected to, so that I could have my on-screen display. So what's it like to fly? Well, if you keep the battery light enough, it'll hover about 30% throttle. With a big chunky heavy battery that I've currently been flying it with, it's more like 45%, and that's a little bit high for a quad like this, particularly one that has this much poke. And that's going to give you about 4 minutes on a 3S 450 mAh pack, or about 5 minutes on a 650 mAh pack, which is what I'm running it on here. This 650 battery though that I'm playing with is probably a little bit heavy for this. I would try and use something a little bit lighter. It's really nice to fly and it's decent in still conditions thanks to that power. It's an awful lot of fun, and speed is good too, with plenty of poke, particularly with that 3S battery that allows you to get in and out of spaces without too much trouble. But again, I would personally try and keep it as light as possible. The lighter it is, the more fun it is to fly. Noise isn't bad, and vibration on the camera is okay too. The reason that the image in this flight footage is black and white is that I'm testing one of the new RunCam low-light cameras that only produces a black and white HD image. So what do I like on this? Well, this is what I think the Pico should have been. I really like the style of this design with a VTX and camera on top, and the HD stuff is powered from a nice secure 9-volt supply, not the battery voltage like on the Pico, and that's a big advantage, making sure that all that excess voltage isn't translated into heat inside the air unit. It's well made with lots of cute design touches, just like the Pico, and I do like the LED strip that goes around the outside and the fact that it can be replaced and changed and it just plugs in. It only adds about 5 grams of weight to the model, but it means that this, in terms of an evening night flyer, is absolutely fantastic, particularly with that low light camera that I've put on it. I do like the fact they've got the CLI dump on the website, and I do like the fact that with that extra power, this 3S is an awful lot more fun than the Pico. A couple of things to be aware of though with this. The props aren't really getting in the way of this camera here because it's so proud, and that also means that if I crash, this camera is going to take the brunt of that. If you're using a shorter camera, then at lower angles you are going to get the front props in the view. The camera and VTX cage is designed around an O3 air unit. They do provide the brackets that allow you to mount it like I have here. However, I am not a massive fan about how much protection that's going to give it in a crash. That is going to shatter and break, and then the impact is going to go directly into your 170-pound DJI air unit. Be aware that when using shorter cameras, the side pieces that do protect the camera in a rudimentary way mean that you are going to only be able to get ND filters that are vertical, and I hope they keep the Betaflight dump files updated so that as version 4.5 comes out of Betaflight and others, then we can continue to update it. Doing things like using user 1 to control LEDs is something that happens a lot on quads, but invariably the manufacturers don't upkeep all of the dump files, so when you upgrade, then trying to get that user 1 stuff back so you can control the LEDs on it is a real pain in the butt. My big gripe with this is that I think DJI are telling BetaFPV, as well as lots of other manufacturers, that when they make these things, they have to make them around the DJI O3 air unit. Systems like WalkSnail and HD0 have found an amazing amount of ground in the last 12 months, and those systems should be represented and supported a lot easier than BetaFPV is making out here. Now, you can absolutely modify things and put a WalkSnail or something like a HD0 unit in this and run it from the same port, but the cage isn't really designed around that, and BetaFPV should be providing multiple cages or options designed around those different systems. Sure, it's absolutely fine having one designed around the O3 air unit. That's absolutely what DJI wants us to go and buy now. However, I still want to use my original goggles with these air units, particularly as RunCam are continuing to still ship these and produce innovative cameras like this super low light one that I've got here installed here too. Last thing to be aware of is 3S power could feel a little bit aggressive when you keep it super light. However, if you are using a chunky battery like I am here, then actually it's reasonably calm. There isn't any expo added in the Betaflight setup, so I would recommend adding about 30% on each of the axes. So in summary, the Pico 20 outperforms the Pico Pico in every single respect, and I would get this over the Pico Pico without any worry at all. But if BetaFPV are watching this, stop listening to your DJI overlord friends. Start thinking about things like WalkSnail and HD0 too. There's lots of us out here who fly other stuff, and I know they're probably threatening you with all kinds of things, but please, please, please think about the other parts of the hobby. Thank you for watching the video. If you watch my videos and find them useful, then please take a moment to hit the like and subscribe button. It helps the channel a lot. If you really like what I'm doing here, you can become a Patreon and support the time I spend helping others and get access to lots of exclusive benefits. Link is in the video description. Remember that all the videos on the channel are organised into playlists, so you can easily use those playlists to find all the videos on a subject that you are interested in. Add Painless 360 to your searches on Google and YouTube, and it'll help you find my content for any particular topic. Thanks again for watching, and as always, happy flying.